right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a quick video lesson today to talk about simplifying with shorthand. So we're working in our unit that's called From Few Come Many, and we're trying to explore that big idea of how we can take just the 92 elements on the periodic table to make everything that we see, all of the matter that we see. So to do that, we started last week with the idea of that matter making game where we played with nuts and bolts, just 4 different types of material, and we were able to create different combinations. So we're going to take it one step farther today. So when you open up the form on Teams, you should see this first part here in section 1. We're going to be talking about simplifying with shorthand, and I will post the video lesson in the post section. Suppose you wanted to describe to a classmate one of the combinations we drew in round 1 of the matter making game. The picture of this combination is shown above. On a separate sheet of paper, draw a picture of the combination using the drawing rules from the matter making game. So, to refresh your memory, you can go back to your matter making game instructions and you can figure out how we would draw this. We would draw it using an open half circle and a line with 2 rectangles, because what I see here, my description with the complete sentence would be that I have a short bolt with 2 square nuts connected to it. Remember, I want to include that piece that they are connected. I have more than just a little pile of bolts, nuts and bolts here. I have a connected unit. Have this combination, our idea of the chemical compound. So for this first section here, you should have a piece of scratch paper out where you can draw the combination like you did in the matter making game. And then in the box for number 1, you should type a complete sentence that tells me about the combination. Remember, complete sentences have a capital at the beginning, a period at the end, and they express an entire complete thought. If you do not have a complete sentence, you're an 8th grader. I know you know how to do this. If you do not have complete sentences, you will not receive credit here. We're working on those literacy skills today. When you're finished with that, we're going to keep moving on. So now we are going to write our combinations using shorthand symbols, just like elements in the periodic table. We will let BO, capital B, lowercase o, be shorthand for a short bolt, and capital S, lowercase q, be shorthand for a square nut. Each symbol for our matter-making game elements will have 2 letters. The first letter is capitalized and the second letter is lowercase. So there's nothing you need to type into that box there. But what we're doing is now we're coming up with that shorthand. Just like we had element names and symbols, now we have our element names, short bolt, square nut, and our symbols to represent them. So in question 3, you need to look through those multiple choice options and find the correct symbol for a short bolt. You can go back and reread the paragraph in number 2 if you forgot. Same thing for number 4. You're going to choose the correct symbol for a square nut. Now question 5, this is where it's going to get interesting. Use the shorthand symbols to describe your combination. So we're thinking about that idea. I'll redraw it here, where we have that open half circle and 2 rectangles. That short bolt with 2 square nuts attached to it. You need to come up with a way to represent that combination using the symbols and numbers. So on your scratch paper, make your best guess and then type it into the box here. Now, if you know something about where we're going with this, you may not be able to place your number exactly where you want to put it, and that's okay. Do your best to type it in the ways that you know how. Here we have some of the examples of ways students drew it in class. So I see that idea of the short bolt and the square nuts. And I can see a bunch of different representations. I see this one here. I see that I have bolt, comma, squared, square. I have one here where I have some exponents. I have numbers up above my letters. I have this one here where I have big numbers in front of my symbols. See, I have another exponent, big numbers in front. I have plus signs between each of my pieces. And I have some with subscripts. Subscripts means like submarine. Those numbers are littler and down below. So in the box for number 5, you should choose either your own option if you came up with something new, or choose one of the options from this sheet here to explain the combination. And then we're going to talk about how a scientist would write this. So pause the video, make sure you have all those first 5 parts done, and then you're ready to move on. So scientific shorthand. Now we're going to talk about the way scientists would write our formulas. While there are many different valid ways to represent the combination in question 1, scientists have agreed upon a set of rules to create a unified method of combinations. When chemicals combine, they create compounds. The combination of written symbols is called a formula. In our formulas, we will always list the bolts first, then any or all nuts in the combination. And so the reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm giving you these rules is because this matches the idea when we're talking about actual elements. Scientists have rules for writing chemical formulas. If it's a metal and a non-metal, we list the metal first. If it's covalent ions, we do different stuff here. But there are rules. So just like scientists have rules for chemical formulas, you guys now have rules when we're dealing with our nuts and bolt combinations here. Scientists use coefficients and subscripts in chemical formulas to designate how many of each type of atom are in a compound. Subscripts are small numbers within a formula that tell us how many atoms of an element are included in the combination. This small number is directly after the element symbol. A coefficient is a number in front of a chemical formula. We will explore this idea further in the next lesson. So no coefficients yet, but the numbers that you are including in your combinations should be subscripts. Those subscripts are the small numbers within the combination. So if we're thinking back to the last one here, our combination that looked like this, the scientific way that we would describe this would be, we list our bolts first, so we have a short bolt. We only have one, so just like in math, if we have x, we know that that really means 1x. We don't need to include a number on our bolts here. If we only list the symbol, we know that that means there's just one. Then I see square nuts, and I have 2 of them. So I'm going to type a subscript 2. Now, when you're typing it into your form here, it'll look like BOSQ2. Your capitalization is still important, but at this point, we don't yet know how to draw subscripts using our typing rules. So now, let's look at the combination that I see on the screen here. This one, I see a short bolt, oh, where's my pointer? A short bolt, I see a square nut, and I see another short bolt. So pause the video now and see if you can write down the combination. Now that you've had a chance to write it, let's check and see. Well, I see 2 short, we're not going to use this, 2 short bolts, 2, and I see 1 square nut. When I'm writing that as a combination, I want to write it as if it were a word. Just like I have individual letters that make up my word, I have individual symbols that make up my formula. I'm going to list those bolts first. And I have 2 of them, so that subscript 2 goes after my BO, and then I'm going to include the square nuts. When you're ready, hit next so you can go on to the next slide. So now that we have an understanding of how to use our scientific shorthand, let's add in our other types of atoms from the matter making game. We will use capital B lowercase l to represent a long bolt and capital H lowercase x for hex nuts. Remember, in our drawings, we will show short bolts as open half circles with a line, and long bolts will have a closed or shaded half circle with a line. Square nuts will be drawn as a rectangle, and hex nuts will be drawn as a triangle. So in questions 7 and 8 on this section here, you need to choose the correct symbols for the long bolt and the hex nut. Review the paragraph if you need to. The last thing we're going to do on this page here is we need to figure out how to write with scientific shorthand the combination that's shown above. So that picture there, I see, let's see, let's go to my little pointer here. I see a short bolt. Sorry for the interruption there. Let's see, we have a short bolt. I see a hex nut. I see another hex nut. And then I see a long bolt. That one's shaded in. So my pieces are a short bolt, 2 hex nuts, and a long bolt. So I need to use that scientific shorthand to write in my combination. Pause the video now, do your best, and then check your work in just a second here. Now that you're back, let's see what this should look like. Well, I know my pieces are going to be that short bolt. I'm going to have 2 of those hex nuts, and I have a long bolt. When I'm writing out my formula, I need to make sure I have all the bolts first. So I'm going to list them. I have a BO and a BL. Order doesn't matter. I could have BL, then BO, or BO, then BL. And then I have my nuts next. So I have hex nuts, and I'm going to put a 2. That subscript 2 tells me that I have 2 hex nuts. Remember, when you're typing right now, it'll look like BOBLHX2. But when you're writing it, if you're writing it on paper, and when you start writing these, when we learn how to use the math tools, you're going to use those subscripts, submarines below. Those numbers go below. So BOBLHX2. Now the fun part. On your separate sheet of paper, your scratch paper that you were using, Draw 3 complicated combinations that you might have made in round 3, the battle royale of the matter making game. So in the battle royale, you had 5 short bolts, 5 long bolts, 15 square nuts, and 15 hex nuts. What I want you to do if you're doing this as a remote student is I want you to draw them out, and then you can either exchange pictures over Teams, or you can draw combinations and then label them yourself with whatever they should be. Either check with a partner, or you can send me a Teams chat with the picture to check. That way I know that you're practicing these skills. When you're finished with that, there are some wrap-up questions, some multiple choice questions here to make sure that you have those big ideas. Thanks for working hard, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take these ideas about shorthand formulas and we're going to start building our chemical equations soon. Get this done and make sure you submit that form on Teams. Thanks.